This is Classical Ideas with Greg Soden. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Classical Ideas. This is Greg Soden. Today's guest is Sonny Zaide. Sonny is the owner of the Purple Cloud Center for Eastern Medicine in Chicago, Illinois. He is a licensed acupuncturist, certified practitioner and teacher of Qigong and Qigong healing, and a student of the Tao. Sonny and I got to chatting on Twitter a few months ago, and I invited him to talk about his work with me to discuss the many questions I had regarding Eastern Asian medicine. Sonny is a master's of science in Oriental medicine with over 1,000 hours of clinical experience in acupuncture, cupping, electrostimulation, and herbal medicine from the Midwest College of Oriental Medicine. He is a nationally board-certified acupuncturist, level 3 in Zen Shiatsu. He's a certified reflexologist, a certified Reiki master, and a certified practitioner of clinical Qigong energy healing. He specializes in post-traumatic stress disorder and stress, anxiety, and depression treatments. Next time I'm in Chicago, Sonny is going to give me my first acupuncture experience. Can't wait. I'd also like to give Sonny some props for bonding with me over Haruki Murakami novels. It's always great to meet a Murakami acolyte. So without further delay, I bring you my chat with Sonny Zaide. Sonny, thank you so much for coming on the Classical Ideas.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I'm curious if you can just go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience. You can say anything you want about yourself, like your business or anything at all that is relevant to today's discussion.
Well, my name is Sonny. My job is a licensed acupuncturist and a Qigong practitioner. In my clinic, I do a mix of acupuncture, energy work, and cupping. And yeah.
Excellent. So where's your business?
My business is located in Chicago, Illinois. It's in this nice up-and-coming neighborhood called Rogers Park. It's funny because Rogers Park, we've been there since 1983. Well, what happened was, I was born in a north side in the Edgewater neighborhood. It's in the north side. And then we lived in the west side for quite some time in the Austin neighborhood. And during that time, my parents opened up a bakery. And that bakery had one product, and that was it. And there was just Philippine pandesal. And that's all we baked. And this was when I was about 4 or 5 years old was when I started working. And, I would have to stand on milk crates. And, and my first job was to basically place, put the dough onto like breadcrumbs and put them, neatly on the pan, and that graduated into actually rolling the dough, Nice. So you have this kid in this burning hot bakery just working away, and all these adults would come in and just like, whoa, is this kid really making our bread? And like, yeah, my parents like, yeah, and I'm an only child, so basically, and this is like 70s, right? So, I'm an only child in the 70s, and this is my parents' only form of daycare, is having me work. And so, we ended up moving to the suburb called Lincolnville, Illinois. We still maintained the bakery for a bit, but my dad actually branched out and bought a building in Rogers Park neighborhood in 1983.
Cool.
And it was a rough neighborhood, at the time, but we still kept the building, and we've watched the neighborhood just really um, evolve from there. And so what happened after my father died, uh, I ended up taking a space, and eventually I turned it into my acupuncture center.
Okay, wait a second. So your current building it's called Purple Cloud Chi Center, right?
It's Purple Cloud Center for Eastern Medicine.
Excellent. So your center is in the building that you were a baker when you were like 5 years old.
Oh no, that was in the West Side. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
But however, uh, my father gave the bakery to my aunt, and he started an income tax and real estate business, mainly to focus on income tax preparation. Um, and so basically, that was also my form of daycare. And so since I was, I want to say about 10 years old, I went from rolling dough to filing 1040s. you
Oh,
know and,
nice.
and so my father would be like, all right, here's our homework. What and this is during like winter break. Like I think you know late December, early January, when we kids are still in winter break, I'd had to hang out with my dad. And so because there's no school, and so he gives me homework and he makes me read the 1040 book. Of course, I have no idea what this stuff is, and it's really dry,
Yeah.
and, I'm just a little kid, and so all these words are just so advanced for me. But he made me read the book, and he made me file all the papers in it. Okay, put the 1040 EZs here, put the 1040As, 1040 forms, and and so basically, yes, I am now performing acupuncture in the very building where I used to file 1040s.
Oh, I
For my
love it.
dad.
I love it. Do you ever have like flashbacks whenever you're in your center doing some type of acupuncture work, thinking about all those memories you have doing that when you were a little kid?
Oh God, yes, yes, and yeah, I mean, we can get to that, in a little bit, because it goes from like really fond memories to really dark stuff.
Sure, sure.
you know. But yeah, I do think of those days, and I do think of my father a lot with that building and
So,
stuff. So,
what is your day-to-day life like? I'm curious about the day-to-day minutia of working in an acupuncture and qigong health center.
well, I'm also a family person too. Husband and father of two kids. I got a 10-year-old boy and a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old girl. And so, I get up in the morning about 5 o'clock. I by 5:30, I'm doing about an hour or so of qigong practice for cultivation to gather energy into my body to get me through the rest of the day. And so after that, I get the kids ready, get myself ready, get to work by about 9 o'clock, and then I do another hour or so of qigong energy cultivation. Um, and then by 11 o'clock, I start taking patients, and I get about anywhere between 5 to 6 patients per day. Um, and then by 9 o'clock at night, I'm done, and I go to bed, catch up with the wife, and
Sure.
the day starts, over and over.
So, what does your cultivation practice look like during those 2 hours of daily practice? Like, what do you do?
Well, I do a number of things in order to cultivate. Now, qigong, as you know, is kind of an umbrella term or a blanket term for a myriad of practices for cultivating energy, or qi. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so qi means energy, gong means cultivation. Okay, and and I can't speak for all qigong lineages, and all of which I do respect. Every qigong lineage has their own particular purpose. and endeavors that they're journeying through. And in my case, my Qigong practice is purely clinical, meaning that I'm cultivating energy so that I could give it to my patients in the form of healing. And so, and that takes a lot of energy. And so what I do a mix of sitting meditation, standing meditation, and moving meditation in order to gather that energy.
I think about the difficulties of like a caring profession, you know.
Hmm.
I'm a high school teacher, and in my building, there are teachers, there are guidance counselors, there are principals, and we're all there to serve the public. And
Right.
it's such a challenging thing because at the end of the day, I know exactly what you mean when you say that the energy is gone. You have to have this
Hmm.
amazing amount of energy built up in order to help other people, and
Hmm.
how it can just totally deplete you.
Yes, absolutely.
So I completely understand.
Yes, absolutely. Even with other jobs, I mean, before I was an acupuncturist, I was income tax preparer and property management. Uh, I was in property management, and you had to with the deal with a lot of people. You get into arguments with a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and that drains a lot of energy because you care. You want the best for your tenants or your clientele. And so you're constantly having to almost play Tetris with so many different aspects of whatever it is we're doing, whether it's managing the property or trying to get the most money back for our clients as far as income taxes go. And so there will be disagreements and there will be conflict, and that in itself is very draining, you know.
Yeah. So what is the power of your work? Like, I mean, like, why do you do what you do? Like, what keeps you getting out of bed and going to work every day?
Oh boy, that is a question. I mean, I'll put it this way, my journey throughout this healing, um, or say my journey towards wanting to become a healer, took place well, you know, into my childhood. And it wasn't just like a direct lie. Some people they knew that they wanted to become healers right away, right? And so you always meet these kids that always had that sort of knack for it. Me, not so much. Uh, Flashes of wanting to become a healer came to me more so in foreshadowing, kind of like in a story. Okay, so I remember one of the first stories of what I wanted to give to the world came to me when I was a kid. This experience, I remember clear as day. We were living in the West Side, and there was a parade right outside of this office that my mom took me into. We left the office, and this parade started. And I saw my friends like carrying a banner. They're all waving hi to me, and then all of a sudden, there's this guy that came up to the crowd with buckets and buckets of candy. And so and he threw a bunch of candy right in front of me. And so I was like, oh, sweet candy. And so I was picking up this candy, and there's like all these other kids picking up candy too. And I stuffed as much as I could in my pocket, you know, all proud and, happy, like I got all this candy, right?
Yeah.
I get home and I'm looking at my candy, and I had a really good handful of candy, and I start crying. And my mom comes into the room. It's like, why are you crying? And I go, because what if the other kids don't have as much candy?
Mm.
What if I took their candy? And And my mom just looks at me, just kind of shakes her head. She's like, don't worry about those kids. But it still ate at me, you know? And the fact that I remember it still kind of ate at me for a little while after that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that foreshadowing of compassion that I wanted to share with the world. You know, I was like, yeah, I have all this candy, but I want other people to enjoy this too, you know? And so, you know, another aspect, in a different light is when, you know, my father was, when, you know, must have been when I was about 4 years old. My father told me that he was really sad. And so, you know, I went into his, you know, office and picked up a box of paper clips, and I linked them all together in a circle and, you know, formed a bracelet. And I gave it to him. I put him on his wrist, put the bracelet on his wrist. I said, "Here you go. This is going to help you feel better," you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so immediately my father just kind of looked at me, almost teary-eyed, and told me he feels better, you know?
Man, that jumps out at me too because, I mean, I don't mean to get all mopey here, but I personally do struggle with a lot of sadness. You
Yeah.
know, I carry that with me every day, and I feel like I'm depleted oftentimes. I'm exhausted. I'm frustrated. I'm
Oh, yeah.
stressed. I'm worried. I think about people that I've wronged, and
Hmm.
it just eats at me. So whenever I think about you as like 5 years old walking up to your father and doing that, it kind of gets me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I've always had that in me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but, you know, throughout time, as I was growing up, you know, it's hard. You know, my parents are from the Philippines, they're immigrants, you know, and it was hard for us growing up, you know, late 70s throughout the 80s and stuff. And, you know, the Civil Rights Act of, what is it, 68,
Yeah.
um, was fairly new, but still the discrimination occurred just quite openly. Um, you know, for instance, my father was passed up for, you know, like somebody left my father's office. My father took over as acting, um, you know, office manager for at least a couple years, and then they hired. And it's funny because we all assumed that he had that job. That was his job, but they said, no, you're just, you know, temporary, and they hired someone else, you know, and you know, he felt that was pretty discriminatory, right?
Sure.
Um, and it also happened to my mom as well when she used to work at the McDonald's corporate office. Um, and you know, and but that stuff was pretty blatant, and you know, and socially and publicly, I mean, it was pretty tough. You know, we had a lot of uh, racist things happen to us throughout the years, and you know, but we lived in, you know, we ended up moving um, into a little bit more diverse areas. You know, I mean, well, we lived in pretty diverse areas all the time, but when it came to just everyday living, there's always these little cheap shots, and that just bore down on me. You know, I didn't realize until much later on how much weight that it had on my soul.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I carried this sadness throughout my entire time.
So, do you think about these experiences whenever a patient of yours experiences like a moment of breakthrough in their own healing process?
Yeah, you know, it's you know, my main focus in healing others is mental emotional wellness, and it's because I went through a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression that I know what it's like, and I know how hard it is to go on through life carrying this awful weight on your, you know, on your being. And thankfully, I found a way out. And so, with each and every single one of my patients, I'm able to let them know that, hey, I'm here for you. I know what it's like. And so I can help you out of it.
So even when you're performing like some kind of physical healing on somebody like an acupuncture, or do you talk to your patients in the way that you're kind of talking to me right now to like open yourself up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really careful about who I talk to in this manner. I mean, some people seem very open to it, and some people just kind of want to keep things light. And so I act accordingly. But there are those who really want to talk deeply about things, and I'm here for them.
Because I can imagine that, you know, with you like performing acupuncture or some kind of other healing practice or a qigong practice with a patient, and you're having
Yeah,
conversations like this, that I could imagine it could lead to some pretty deep places.
yeah. It gets into some deep, dark places. Um, my patients, who, by the way, are very much protected under,
Of
you know,
course.
my care and also laws, they feel free and safe to tell me what they're experiencing and what they have experienced. And I feel privileged uh, to be able to share with them. And there are times, and even though I'm their practitioner, it gives them a lot of comfort knowing that I've been through roughly the same things they have, as far as the intensity of anxieties or PTSD and such.
Mm-hmm.
So
So you have this lovely statement on your website. So I went through and I scoured your website, and you have like this homage to
mhm.
Chicago.
Oh yeah.
And I love these lines that you have on your blog, man. They were just so powerful. And after I read them, I was walking in the downtown of my own city,
Yeah.
and your lines in your blog stuck with me when I was in my own town, and I started to think about walking down the streets as some kind of spiritual experience.
Uh-huh.
So, in your blog, you say Chicago and her streets are your monastery.
Yeah.
So, what kind of spiritual experiences occur for you in the places that you go around town? Like, how have you turned the everyday into spirituality in Chicago?
It's interesting you asked that because I actually stole that from a great Zen author who I really really love. His name is Shozan Jack Hobner.
Oh, yes, he's going to be on the podcast.
Oh, lovely. I mean, seriously, I don't know what I'm doing on your podcast. You have some amazing people on there.
Oh man, this is great. I'm so happy to have you. I'm just saying, I'm so happy. This is thrilling.
But he was on this podcast called The One You Feed.
Oh yeah.
And there's this part where he mentions monastic life, how everybody's there for their own reasons to figure out their own anxieties, their own attachments. And so everyone gets thrown in there like a bag of rocks, and there's always somebody shaking up that bag, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
he mentions that you can't choose who you cultivate around. And so I ran with that idea. And I said, you know what? This is just like everyday life. You can't choose your family. You can't choose who you drive next to in traffic. You can't choose who you're in line next to at Walmart, or who you are walking around with in the streets of Chicago. And in the same way, everyone's got their own stuff, their own crap that
Mm-hmm.
they have to deal with, their own attachments. And that makes for the chaos that's Chicago. You got a big city of, the city itself is roughly 2.5 million, I want to say. I forgot what the population is today, but just the city itself plus the metro area, which is, millions more. And so when you when you have such a densely populated area, um, you're gonna run into some drama. Someone's always going to be shaking that bag of rocks,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And in my neighborhood that I practice in at Rogers Park, it's, like I said earlier, it's an up and coming neighborhood, but that also means it also has remnants of the very, very rough days still. And so I'm having to find spirituality and inner peace amongst the police and fire sirens, ambulances, gunshots, fights outside, all the time, almost on daily basis. Not necessarily the gunshots, even though that does occur. For instance, just maybe a couple weeks ago, a young kid got shot twice in the arms, just maybe about a block away from my office, and I heard the shots. There were 7 shots. Actually, no, I'm sorry. There were more than that because they were rapid fire shots. It was pretty intense. And then maybe a couple years ago, a young lady got shot outside, maybe catty corner from me, outside of a restaurant from a stray bullet. And it was a poor young lady who was new to Chicago. She was going to Loyola University. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I want to say about 5 years ago, there was a fatal shooting at this restaurant just down the block of me. Teenager got shot in the head, and a couple more inside the restaurant. Okay. And so when we talk about spirituality, spirituality isn't going into some remote forest or a beautiful beach to do yoga. God bless them, though. I mean,
Sure.
or even a monastery. Those things don't have the monopoly on spirituality. Spirituality is about here and now. And so whenever you hear that chaos or experience it or witness it, where is that inner peace within you? How are you going to deal with it? How can you spread light? How can you spread the positivity when there's nothing but chaos spinning around you? Right? It's the endeavor to be that centered spirit, that centered light around which the world can chaotically pivot, but you're a flashlight in the dark, and so other people can get drawn to you.
Whenever I'm in a big city, because I live outside of a small city, so it's really quiet where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I go into a large place like Chicago or New York City or San Francisco,
Yeah.
I'm just amazed at the buzz that is around
Mm-hmm.
me at all times.
Mm-hmm. Oh
And
yeah.
it's really interesting to see how you can respond in those moments and how like the feelings in your body change whenever you're around different kinds of energy in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes it could get too much. I'm very much introverted, and along with a lot of introverts, we get very neurologically sensitive, so we can get very overstimulated. Like crowds really bug me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, and and so sometimes it could get really, really just intense, and sometimes you just get really frazzled, and the attempt to find your center in all of that is quite a challenge. But that's what the spiritual uh, endeavors are all about. Every moment of your day, and that's where you bring the idea of the monastery to your everyday life. No matter where you are, whether you're small town or large city like Chicago, wherever you are, that is an opportunity to grow and learn.
I agree 100%. So, can I ask you about meditation for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure.
So, I've done some different types of meditation. I've gone to some different groups. I've gone to some sitting groups. I've gone to some Zen groups. And
Yeah.
um, there's different levels of guidance in the different schools that I've attended.
Yeah.
And I know that I spoke with another author on this podcast named Ian Johnson, who does a lot of Taoist meditation practices.
Oh, yes, yes.
And so I'm curious if you can talk about what your meditation practice looks like and what kind of school or religion or philosophy it's mostly inspired by. Because I know that like Zen meditation and Taoist meditation, while it may look similar from an outside observer, it's different internally.
Right. Well, first of all, with Taoist meditation, there's so many different forms, because there are so many different lineages, and every lineage has their own endeavor. Some of them are very much like Zen, in which you enrich the mind, and some of them are very much like what I do, in which you cultivate energy. Um, and my particular practice. My practice is called Jing Gong, meaning stillness movement, and it's quite an intense practice, because what's entailed in it is the stillness of your mind. However, the movement aspect of it comes from the allowance of your body to do as it will. So, you see a lot of, shots of meditation, or see, video footage of people meditating, and in most meditative circles, such as, Zen Buddhism, for instance, particularly the Rinzai sect, right? They're quite strict.
Yes.
They're very, they're very, very still, and their back is straight. And it looks pretty profound what they're doing. I find it really fascinating. But with mine, you're actually kind of, you're swaying side to side, round and round. Maybe your head is shaking a little bit. Maybe you just let your arm go, and that starts shaking, spontaneously. The reason why is because that's your body wanting to relieve stagnation. Now, mind you, what I practice is called stillness movement, and it is a Qigong practice. It's a meditative Qigong practice. And the goal of that, or the endeavor of that, is for self-healing. It's very medical in that respect. And in Taoist medicine, or in traditional Chinese medicine, that is our main endeavor, is to relieve stagnation. When you have free flow of the body, then you have a healthy body.
So what does it look like when you're standing then?
Standing, yeah, it looks a little bit more wild. My eyes are either open or closed depending on what they feel like doing. But my body is normally just shaking around, moving around, doing its thing, swirling and swaying. The tricky part is maintaining the stillness of mind when you're doing that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have that particular balance of, okay, let's keep ourselves up and not falling onto the floor in our face, but still maintaining this inner peace. Okay. And so there's a yin and yang aspect of that, the stillness being yin and the movement being yang. And when you're able to transcend your mind past the attachment to, hey, I got to keep my mind still, and the attachment to, hey, I got to keep myself up, then you're going to really truly find the benefit, the medical benefit of it, the emotional benefit.
Do you do any like Tai Chi practice as well?
Yeah, I used to, but not martial. For a very short time, I studied the martial aspect of Tai Chi. I started off with the more performance aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool because because I was studying wushu, and part of wushu classes you get to learn Tai Chi as well. And my wushu instructor was, I'm sure you remember Kung Lao from Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
He was in the actual video game, and so whenever you played Kung Lao, you were playing him. And
Awesome.
that was really cool. Tony Marquez, great, great, great guy. Um, but yeah, I studied the more performance aspect to it, but I wanted to study the more martial aspect to it because it just fascinated me. I mean, how fascinating is it to move that slowly and realize that there is a martial application to it? And so I was very curious about that. And I found this guy, and he was actually in Skokie from Chinese Taoist martial arts. Um, and he taught all the internal arts plus Wudang martial arts. So I'm not sure if you're familiar. Wudang martial arts was featured in the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And so, when I found out about this guy, I was like, oh, where am I signing up? And so he started me off with the Young 24, which I knew from the performance aspect of it. And so he was watching me move, or one of his senior students was watching me move, and there's just like, no, this is way too aesthetic. This is what's really occurring. And you realize that the reason why it's called internal martial arts is because everything, just like meditation, or everything is occurring on the inside, all that inner power, And so what his main thing was, it's proper structure, and it's very, very, very subtle. You won't even know the difference if you saw between his and performance Tai Chi. Um, and so, having seen his YouTube videos, after my first day of class, I went up to Shifu Lin and I said, "Hey, I've been watching your YouTube videos." He's like, "Oh, you want to get tossed into that wall, do you?" And I said, "Yeah, hell yeah." He's like, "All right." So, we get into this position. I put my hands on his forearms and stuff like that. And he just kind of feels around. He's like, "All right, there we go." And he moves. He jerks his body maybe about 1 or 2 inches. He takes a tiny little step, 1 or 2 inches, and I go flying about 3 or 4 feet against a padded wall, like uncontrollably. I was flailing. I said, "Oh my God, what in the world?" And he said, and he was just looking at me, just kind of smiling. He's like, "Are you happy?" I said, "Yeah." So I asked him, "What is this? Is this chi?" And Shifu Lin, being a computer science professor at Northwestern University, looks at me and starts laughing. He said, "No, it's not this chi that you think it is. It's actually structure." And that changed everything for me. And that's when I realized that the word chi is a representation of different aspects of power. It could be the way something is structured. It could be, or something fundamental, as in that which gives something its form or function. And so, understanding martial arts, internal martial arts, through a Tai Chi master, martial master, who's also a computer scientist, changed everything for me. And so, yeah, and that's the way I still practice. I still practice the moves. I mean, he already passed away, but I still practice what he taught me. And just for fun, back in 2014, I entered one of those performance competitions, and for both of my Tai Chi forms, for sword and short form empty hand, I won first place. So I didn't really care about the medals or anything. I just wanted to see where I was in terms of my mindfulness and meditation of it.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that story. That was awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any like spiritual role models, either related to Taoism or anything else?
Um,
I know
honestly,
I know you already mentioned Shozan, and that's fantastic. I'm so glad you
oh,
like
oh
him.
God, I love shows on Jack Hobner. We talk from time to time whenever he's, available, on like Twitter and,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um, but great guy. Um, I really like where he's coming from. I really like, even though I will get some pushback on it, I really love Brad Warner's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
His stuff is, I'm still a beginner in Zen, um, but his stuff made Soto sect accessible to me because I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Soto sect
Yep.
that is very deeply founded in Dogen's work.
Yeah.
If you know the Shobogenzo, if you try to read it, you're just like, what in the world is all of this? You know? But, you know, Brad Warner, through his teacher Nishijima, made it accessible. And it presented me with the philosophy of the way in which really truly called out to me. And so that's where my thoughts on Taoist philosophy kind of extended into Soto Zen. And it's brilliant stuff. So I really like Brad Warner stuff. I really like Shozan Jack Hobner stuff. The contemporaries. Um, of but if we have, I really like Ava Wong's Taoist books.
Oh yeah, The Tales of the Taoist Immortals is one of my favorite books
Yes,
that I
yes,
own.
I love that book. I really love. Oh goodness, what's that? Is it Entering the Dragon Gate? Uh, with the current. Oh my God, I can't believe the name escapes me right now. But it's basically about the current or was current Dragon Gate lineage holder, Wang Li Ping. There you go.
Cool.
And it was basically what he went through in life. But it wasn't necessarily him that really fascinated me. It was his teachers. There was a story in which they encountered a village of people um, suffering from scarlet fever. And so what they did, they went into the village, got everyone into one room, and lit some wet logs on fire, so there was a lot of smoke. And so you had one of Wang Liping's teachers, and they're called the wayfarers, by the way. One of them was just sprinkling some, like herbs into the air. One of them was doing acupuncture into the air. Now, mind you, this was all smoky. All right, so no one was seeing a thing except for Wang Liping. And as soon as the smoke cleared up, the three wayfarers and Wang Liping had already left the village, and everyone was better. And so what happened is that they healed all these people, and they never stuck around to take any credit for it. And to me, that was one of the most profound things I've ever heard, because in some way, shape, or form, that's how I want to practice. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this for fame or fortune to make money or anything like that. I just want to help. And so the three wayfarers of that book, Entering the Dragon's Gate, are some of my spiritual role models as well. But first and foremost has to be Zhuangzi. Have you read the Zhuangzi?
Yes, sir. Sure have.
Uh, oh yeah, it's amazing stuff.
Do you have any Do you have any favorite quotes?
uh, the Tao is in the piss and shit.
Love it. Love it.
Do you know that story?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's when this guy comes up and tries to challenge him. So you're Mr. Chuangzu, the big great sage, and he's just like, yeah, that's me. Like, we're this great Tao. Where's this big old Tao that you're talking of? And he's like, it's over there in the grass. He's like, really, in the grass? I mean, no, I meant like the big great Tao. Where's this big great Tao you're talking about? He's like, oh, come to think of it, it's probably in the dirt. And the guy's like, wait, even smaller still? And Chuangzu is like, no, well, it's over there in the piss and shit. You know, and basically what he's saying is that, this big Tao, this great experience in life, isn't this grand thing. We always focus and try to get to those big grand things, those big grand moments in our lives, right? Oh, I feel so happy, so blissed. But what Chuangzu is saying is that no, the Tao is in your everyday life. There's nowhere that the Tao isn't.
And so many times it's right in front of us and we miss it.
Yeah, everything is right in front of us. Everything is right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? The ultimate truth of anything is right now, right? Those like little, and these are funny, but they kind of make me giggle a little bit. Those little, things that you see in social media in the form of JPEG quotes. The past is history, the future is a mystery, but now is a gift. That's why they call it present.
Yeah.
And it's really cheesy, but it's true. Because everything that you need, everything the biggest truth of the world is right now.
So you are inspired by so many different schools of thought is what I'm picking up on. And that's so interesting to me because I feel like I'm the same way.
And that's Tao.
Yeah. And my wife and friends, like, they'll say, like, oh, everything that you read is like the favorite thing you've ever read. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have a favorite thing that I'll latch onto, and then I'll find something else, and I'll be like, no, that's the best thing I've ever read. And what it does is, I'm not saying that like I'm obsessed with any one thing, but that one thing is a springboard into something else, and that the world is just endlessly fascinating. And you can find those moments of inspiration in those low-lying places, like puddles in the forest.
Oh yeah. Into my healing practice and healing others. Okay. This coming November, knock on wood, if everything goes right, I'll be going with a group of friends to China to study under some Taoist monks for a couple weeks, to give me greater insight on Taoist practice. And so that's that aspect of it. But there's another aspect that's always been brewing inside of me, is writing. Not that I want to become a famous author or anything like that, but I really want to, and I have been exploring writing, my own little stories for myself. And through these stories, I could discover that thing inside of me that brews deeply. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is. But there is Tao in there that I'd like to explore.
Sonny, this has been a great hour with you. I'm so grateful to you for spending this afternoon with me today in this very cold Midwestern day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where can people find you online if they want to know more about your work and your center?
All right, well, my website for my healing center is purplecloudcenter.com, no spaces. It's just purplecloudcenter.com. I'm located in Rogers Park in Chicago, Illinois, 6710 North Clark Street. And all the information that you need about the practice is right there. You could follow Twitter. I think it's Purple Cloud CHI. And if you'd like to follow me personally, it's Rebellious Tao, TAO, on Twitter.
Thank you so much, Sonny Zaide.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Classical Ideas is produced by me, Greg Soden. Music on Classical Ideas is performed and composed by Derek Strybig. You can find his music at www.wearewarmmusic.com. If you would like to support this show, please subscribe or leaving a rating in iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.